Good day, Royals, and welcome back. Alright, tribe, let's level up. Today, I want to go over some things pertaining to investing as a business. Now, why would we want to treat investing as a business? Well, simply because it is a business first. Within my 7 years of being in the financial industry, something I can say that most people talk about is a strategy or some form of way to just instantaneously make money. And that is not how this industry works. One thing we have to be sure of is taking inventory of the investments that we take or the investment ideas that we have. And this is where this session comes in. Now, I want to go over some of the previous investments that I would have made, and hopefully this can give you some insight as to how I am structuring myself to be successful. All right, so let's move on to the first slide. Here we have a pair called EUR-NZD, and this was essentially a setup that I would have observed, and based on the method and system that I use, I was estimating for price to move to a third level. So we can see one level of rise here, we can see the second level of rise here, and this was potentially the third level of rise. So how did this investment play out? Let's go forward. Here we can see the progress of this particular investment, and it was executed. And after being executed, well, because this is a swing investment, what we have to do is just allow these investments to play out. So let's go to the next slide. Here we can see how this investment started to play out. So on the third level, we can see that on the 4-hour time frame, this was executed right around here. And of course, this was the outcome of this particular swing investment. So let's move forward to the next slide. And here we can see the progress of how this investment is running. Now, because of the fact that this is a swing investment, it just simply means that I personally do not have to sit down and pay attention to what this particular market is doing. So let's see how it looks on MT5, right? So in this case, this green dotted line here would be where the entry was, and it would have been executed around, I think it was right here. Was it? And this red dotted line would be my stop loss. And all that stop loss will do is, provided that my insights was off for this particular investment and the investment goes against me, meaning that it goes bearish, well, it just simply means that I gain a lesson, most importantly, of how I can become more aware of what to do the next time something like this shows up. So moving on to the next slide. So what I would have done here for this particular investment would have just moved my stop loss to the entry. And this just simply means that this particular investment is currently running at risk-free. So this is some of the things we have to do as investors to become consistently successful. All right, it is not just about a strategy, but it's about having a structured business plan so that we can analyze why are we failing in some particular areas with regards to investing, and why are we succeeding in some particular areas with regards to investing. And all we are doing with our inventory is seeking what are the best opportunities for us to look out for. All right, so this is the current outcome of this particular investment, and later on we will go to TradingView to see how the progress is going with this particular investment. So let's move on to the next slide. Here we have EUR-USD, and this was a particular investment that I would have just recently observed. So this is me just observing the charts and having a directional bias as bullish and looking to see what the market makers are printing before us. So ideally this was one of our entry signals, and after just placing the buy stop, well, this would be the outcome of this particular investment. So let's go to the next slide. Here, as the investment is progressing, I am finally starting to detail what I am actually seeing here. Of course, the directional bias, and this happens to be a multi-session type 1 formation, right? So this was one of the reasons or the entry criteria for me to look at the charts and use my awareness so that I can either get a lesson or a profitable one. So let's go to the next slide. And as you can see here, I started to structure out this investment as to what I was potentially expecting to happen. And as we can see here, price took off on this particular day. All right, so this turned out into a multi-session, right? W formation. And we can see a larger W with a smaller W formation here, right? The directional bias is still upwards. And this is where I was planning to exit this investment. Now, this would have started out as a day trade, but of course, it turned into an intraday trade. All right, price does not just move in a straight line, even though we can see many bullish candles right here. Price still does not move in a straight line. So we as investors have to understand that most investments would not play out in that one day or that 1 week. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. So here I'm giving notes as to what I'm observing and what I can potentially fine tune or what I need to adjust as time is playing out and this investment is working its way to our target profit. So this was a swing investment and this was an intraday investment. However, because of the structure of the market and what I was expecting to happen on this particular Friday, I decided to put my exit before it started to go any higher. I did not want to leave my investments with this high impact news event coming, so I made a target and I stuck with it. So let's see how this turned out. This was the outcome of the investment. As I would have mentioned, this was an intraday investment, meaning that it took more than 1 day to complete this particular investment. And as we can see here, this was the outcome. So here I had a potential idea as to where I could have let the investment run to. However, securing profits is also part of our game. So this was my target, but because of what I was observing and because NFP was supposed to be the next day, as I made a note here, I closed off this particular swing investment before NFP came. Of course, this just means that after these major impact news events happen, it just means that we just have to reassess what's going on with the charts to be able to gain more insight so that we can look out for the next opportunity around the corner. So what turned out to happen? Well, the next day, NFP came and it actually went to where I had an idea that price could have potentially gone to. And of course, it started to retrace afterwards. All right, so this is just a structure that I'm using to critique my own self, to help me improve. And we as investors, we are not only just looking for a strategy just to make money. Remember that once we understand the dynamics of the skill set, the money automatically comes, all right? But we have to master ourselves before we master our charts. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Here we can see in MT5, this was the buy stop that would have been executed. And this was my stop loss here. I believe the risk was somewhere around 20 pips. And I was aiming for roughly about 80 pips thereabouts. So let's see how it progressed. As we can see from the charts to now, the application where we can place our investments on our brokers. Here we can see that the trade or the investments played out really nicely. As you can see here, I would have had this investment that I wanted to hold for maybe several weeks. However, because of the structure and the timing of the markets and so forth, I decided to close both investments at the same time. Right? So you can see this is the target profits here, and I believe it turned out to be about 85 to 87 pips thereabouts. All right, so again, collecting inventory on our business allows us to see what it is we need to do in order for us to be consistently profitable. So let's go to the next slide. We can see our next investment, GBP NZD, and here we can see a failure point coming up. So the idea was, again, one level of rise, two level of rise, and potentially the third level of rise here. And this investment is still currently in motion. So let's look at what happened in the next slide. I personally made a mistake. You can see that I annotated that I made a mistake. Where is it? Look, it's here. My mistake, right? The investment was supposed to have a stop loss of 150 pips, which I plotted out here, but on MT5, I placed it as 100 pips, and that was my fault. Had I not made that error, I would not have had a decrease on this particular investment. However, we live and we learn. So as I stated here, original stop loss was 150 pips. 100 pips was placed on MT5, my mistake. This candle was the result of a news event. I will place another buy stop at the major half point. So as we can see here, this was the secondary investment. So even though we may have a percentage decrease with our investments, that is not a problem. It is all about learning and improving, and once we continually improve, we will not fail. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And currently, this is the progress report for this particular investment. As you can see, I was triggered in, price retraced, and this was some drawdown which we all must endure as investors before price decides to go in our favorable direction. Let's go to the next slide. We can see here on MT5, I think I can't say exactly where that missed investment was. It was right around here, I believe, or was it here? Let's go back one, so we can see. Right, so this was where I would have gotten stopped out, but this was the buy stop that I would have placed. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And all I did here was just simply secure my investment to make it risk-free. And this was the current mode of this investment. So we can see here us literally adapting to what the markets are showing before us. And we are not fixated on I must win an investment. This is how investors become wealthy. This is how investors become successful. They are not afraid to take risks, even though we may see some decrease in our accounts. That is part of our process. That is part of our business model. So let's go to the next slide. Here we can see a failed investment, and I would give some reasons as to why this investment would have failed. The idea behind this investment was that price was going to go bullish at this point in time, and I was looking for a mini bullish cycle. So let's go on to the next slide. And here we can see this investment fail. This was also the result of a news event that I did not consider, and this was the result of that unawareness. So let's go to the next slide. Now, I did not have a initial screenshot of this particular investment, but you can see this was an outcome. I had a buy limit and it was triggered in, and this was the turnout for this particular investment. And let's go to the next slide. I was wicked in by a buy limit, and this was the outcome over the course of 2 days. Again, because NFP was going to be the next Friday, I decided to close those investments off. So what has been my results for this particular investment? And as we can see here, we do not have to capture every single investment in the market. This is why we have multiple pairs. We have Forex, we have metals, we have commodities, we have cryptos. We have so many avenues to be able to just observe certain charts, to be able to use our awareness to become profitable. Most importantly, become consistent. All right? And this was the result of this particular investment. I had an idea as to where price could have potentially gone. However, let's go to the next slide. I closed off this investment early because, as I mentioned, NFP was going to be the next day. So we can see NFP would have driven the markets up, and then of course they would have driven the market down. All right. And something that we as investors may potentially do, we may potentially try to hold on to investments too long at some point in time and not taking profits, when the market can completely reverse, and also that is a part of our learning process. So based on my awareness, I have been adjusting myself continually. Remember that this skill set is a lifelong skill set. These markets are always available to us. And once we refine ourselves and refine our edge, well, the results will eventually show for themselves. So let's go to the next slide. Well, that looks like that was the last slide. Right, so the idea behind this investment, and we can go to the charts now, was that I was simply expecting price to potentially continue a third level of rise. So I'm looking out to see what price can do at that point in time, and we will see how the markets are showing up to us. So let's go to the charts. All right, so we are currently on the DXY on the 1 hour time frame, and let's see what's going on with these particular investments. As I may have stated in some videos from before, the DXY is the US dollar index, and based on what the US dollar is doing, we can get an idea as to what some correlated pairs as well as some inversely correlated pairs will be doing at some point in time. All right, so this has been the DXY performance over the last several weeks. We can see it came out from a bearish cycle right here, and now it's into a bullish cycle. All right, so we are looking to see what can potentially happen. I personally may be looking out to see if price may actually come a little lower, right? Making a 3 levels of a bearish cycle, at least a mini bearish cycle, and then I can look to see what can potentially happen afterwards. Remember, we do not control these markets. The market makers do. The hedge funds, the pension funds, those investment banks, those are the people who give the liquidity to the market makers to drive these prices up and down. And once we understand the structures that they implement, well, we can just hitch a ride with them. And that is how we become consistent and profitable. All right, so let's look at EUR NZD and its current progress report. As I would have mentioned, that even though price made a fairly decent dip, well, they have to collect some liquidity at some point in time. So we can see this stop hunt here, but the market has recovered thereafter. And will it hit my target? Well, we still have to wait to see what will happen. All right, there are some structures that I have implemented here with this particular investment, and this is why I'm not paying attention to it. The great thing about investing in the financial markets is that once we understand the systems and we can utilize either intraday investing or swing investing, we can have our money printed while it is we go to work, we go to sleep, we live our lives, and we come back to do our assessment. So that's the lovely part about the financial industry. All right, we can make money automatically at some point in time, but it takes the work, it takes discipline, it takes consistency, and of course it leads to profitability. All right, so this is the current progress for EUR NZD. And now let's go to EUR USD. Look at what has been happening. As you can see here, the swing investment would have been closed out here, and then of course NFP would have rocked the chart. I'm not too sure if you're seeing me there. Are you seeing me there? Yeah. So NFP would have rocked this chart here, and now we are in a small bearish cycle. Now, will this continue going bullish or will this continue going bearish? And of course, I need more data to have an idea as to what I can look out for in the very near future. All right, so let's see what's going on with GBP NZD. And as you can see here, whoa, well, price is almost to our target profit here, right? So let's see. Right, price is almost at its target profit here, and I'm sure you can potentially see we only have several pips again to go to our whole number. All right, this is a quarterly number that I'm using here, and you can see price is very near to it. It's roughly, let's use a price range. It's only like 49, 50 pips away from our target. So of course we're going to leave that investment, let it ride to its target profit. And this is a lovely part about investing, really and truly. Once it is you understand what it is you're looking for and you have your rules and your regulations in place, well, again, it leads to discipline, it leads to consistency, it leads to obedience to your system, and of course you will become profitable. All right, that is what most persons are looking for. They are looking to become profitable. But most importantly, you are looking to refine yourself, to refine your edge. All right, and let's look at GBP USD as our last investment. All right, let's reset the charts. All right, so as you can see here, this would have played out really nicely. And of course, there is some structure being built up here. All right, there is still the potential for price to continue bullish before it goes bearish. However, we still have to get more data to analyze as to why we are going to be looking for a bullish cycle or why we are going to be looking for a bearish cycle, right? And time has to play out. The candles has to be printed on the charts for us to gain that awareness. Then we can use a guided and informed, educated decision as to what it is we can look out for in the very near future. All right, so what am I collecting my data on? Well, let's look at something that I would have been working on behind the scenes for myself to collect my own personal data. Welcome to Pipex, your data collection center. Now, Pipex is a tool that I would have created from Notion so that I can collect inventory for any of the investments that I would have been looking at, to take, or to even to stay away from. If we do not collect data on our investments or the charts and we are just focusing on the monetary aspect about investing, well, we are doing it wrong. I can say after 7 years of trial and error, some successes, some failures, and finally getting consistent with my edge, I can say that collecting data collecting an idea of what it is you look for in the markets, that will give you the most amount of insights as to how you can improve. And by doing so, again, it leads to consistency, it leads to discipline, it leads to obedience of your structured system, and then of course it brings profitability. All right, so this is how we are going to be utilizing this to create a legacy, not only for ourselves but for our loved ones. So let's look at Bitcoin. All right, this was a projection, and let's go to TradingView. If I click that link, we would have seen an analysis as to what I was looking out for with Bitcoin. So this is the before picture, and let's go to the after picture. All right, so you can see that this played out beautifully. However, I did not take this investment, all right, as this was just a projection. And in doing so, I can understand what it is I can fine tune so that I can be more consistent, I can be more successful. All right, so let's go back to Pipex. Let's go to this particular investment that I would have taken. Let's go to another one here. Let's go to the GBP NZD. Let's see, was this an increase? Let's go to GBP USD here. And this was the current investment that I was referring to. I did not have the before link, but as you can see, I took the screenshots so that I will be able to have that data captured. And this is how we make progress, people. This is how we make progress, royals. This is how we will become successful. All right, so Pipex is just a few listing of my criterias as to what it is I need to understand more about so that I can be more consistent and more successful. After every investment has been placed and there is either a lesson learned or a profitable lesson learned, I need to evaluate these investments. And in doing so, I will see where I can fine tune. And if I'm seeing on my evaluation side of these investments and something is off a little too much in terms of maybe the timing is a bit off, or maybe I rush these investments, that just simply means I just have to sit on my hands, hold back and wait, and then look for the best opportunity as time moves forward. All right, guys, so with that being said, I hope this was insightful, guys. I hope that you got some value in this session here, in this market insights of how I am improving my statistics as an investor for the foreseeable future. All right, like, subscribe, and of course, comment. Reach out and create some engagement so that we can all learn from this type of videos, this type of content. All right, so with that being said, I truly look forward to the next time you say yes to becoming consistent and becoming a successful investor in the financial industry. And until the next video, Royals, stay awesome. Have a great day. Cheers.